This is Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
Ho, ho, ho. That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line there.
We're looking at 10.5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
Welcome back, podcast fans. Thanks again for tuning in. This month, you join us from the Spanish city of Alicante, long-time host to one of our sport's most loved races. So it's great to have you along. We have another two-part edition for your enjoyment. And this month, we're talking all things Ocean Race. With just a couple of days to go until the famous offshore race kicked off, I sat down with a bunch of the skippers, crew members and some old friends of the podcast to have a chat about this much-loved race. So plenty of that coming up. To all of you that got in touch after listening to Tom Slingsby, well, many, many thanks. It's always great to hear from you. And as you can imagine, Tom went down a storm. He has a lot of fans around the world, and it seems a lot of them listen to the podcast. So thanks for all your kind messages. And thanks too if you decided to support the podcast by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast. It makes a big difference. So please do, if you haven't already, leave us a message and buy us a coffee or two. Your support helps keep the pod free from random ads and helps us bring you the biggest stories from our wonderful sport. So many, many thanks for your support. So this month, well, every once in a while, we like to bring you a bit of a special edition from one of sailing's big events. So this month, I jumped on a plane and took off for Alicante. Home, of course, to a race that started life an amazing 50 years ago as the Whitbread Round the World Race. It then became the Volvo Ocean Race and has since become the Ocean Race. If you're not too aware, it's the sport's premier offshore race. Sailed in legs around the planet in crude offshore monohulls. For decades, it's been a real proving ground for skippers, boat designers, pro sailors from all corners of the globe, and has been won by the likes of Sir Peter Blake, Grant Dalton, Paul Cayard and Torben Grail. But this edition is going through a transition. In the past, the race was sailed in big, powerful offshore machines, and since the turn of the century, competing teams have all sailed the same class of boat, most recently the Volvo Ocean 65. But for this edition, there's been a big change. This race will be sailed in state-of-the-art IMOCA 60s. The boats you'll have seen in the Vendee Globe or the Route to Run. Powerful, foiling single-handed weapons designed to charge around the world at record speeds. Adapted for crew for the Ocean Race, the teams will be sailing with 4 sailing crew plus an onboard reporter. They'll be foiling, and if you've seen any footage, you'll have seen that predominantly they're almost fully covered. So sailing is done from inside the aft cockpit area. The IMOCA will be joined for some legs by a fleet of Volvo Ocean 65s, but they won't be doing the lap of the planet. So our focus for this edition will be with the IMOCA teams. So who are they? There are 5 teams taking part. In part 2, we chat to British offshore sailor Will Harris, co-skippering Boris Herrmann's Malizia. And we talk to winner of the 2018 Route to Run, French solo sailor Paul Cayard, skipper here of Biotherm. We also delve into the period of transition the race has been going through with the Ocean Race managing director and one-time competitor Johan Salen. In this edition, we talk to my great friend, starting her 3rd Ocean Race, Annie Lush. And we chat to a man that won the Ocean Race last time around, about to start his 3rd race, French Vendee Globe star Kevin Escoffier. We also catch up with one-time Volvo Ocean Race race winner and previous podcast guest Ian Walker. And I also bump into former Team SCA skipper Sam Davies. But we kick things off with a skipper about to start his 3rd edition, sailing an IMOCA campaign for the first time, with a multinational crew from Newport, Rhode Island, Charlie Enright. I hope you enjoy the time I spent at the 2023 Ocean Race.
it's really unique to be sailing inside and down below. It almost requires a more natural sailor.
If you're always thinking that you can sink a boat, you quit sailing.
My first guest this month is no stranger to this race. He's twice before taken on the Volvo Ocean Race as skipper of Team Alva Medica, and then in the last edition as skipper of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Both times finishing 5th. He's got a new IMOCA for this edition, purpose-built for this race. And while his French competitors have been sailing races like the Vendee Globe and the Route de Rhum, the efforts of Charlie and his team have very much been centred on this race. I spoke to Charlie, as I did all our guests, in the 2 days leading up to the start of the race. Charlie Enright, Ocean Race skipper, third time around, and the race just about to get going. How are you feeling on the eve of it kicking off?
I feel good. Wouldn't change much. That said, this edition of the race that we're staring down the barrel of is very different than any of the ones I've done in the past. So I think there's still a lot of unknown, but I feel like we're in a pretty good spot.
It's an odd use of words, staring down the barrel.
Yeah, it was a specific choice of words, I suppose. Yeah, definitely.
It feels a bit like that.
Yeah, definitely. These boats are crazy. The race course is nuts, so sometimes it feels like you got that gun pointed at your head. But I think it's a good choice for the race, and I think the future of this race and the class together, certainly if everything goes well this time, is very bright.
We'll talk about that in a bit. But I was looking at your bio the other day, Charlie, and as I said, this is race 3. You've skippered on both previous editions, and without giving away your age, if all goes to plan, you'll have skippered 3 ocean races before your 40th birthday. I mean, that is some record.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just the way that it kind of came together. Not that any of these ocean race careers have a script or anything like that, but the way that Mark and I arrived on the scene, I think, was a little atypical, and I found myself in a leadership role from day one. That's something that I've been doing the entirety of my sailing career, but not on the grand stage, I guess, until 2014. But they keep hiring me, so and I think I've grown with every opportunity, certainly, and this is by far the best opportunity we've had in front of us, so it's good.
I remember interviewing you before that first race, and you didn't know what to expect, did you? And I asked you some ridiculous question like, how are you gonna approach it? How are you gonna lead your team? And you're like, well, I'm just gonna suck it and see.
Yeah, but there's even a bit of that today, I think people have to be honest. It's, regardless of how much experience you have and what you've done, you pick stuff up along the way, but, no 2 days in this environment are the same, right? So it's day by day, it's decision by decision. And I think if you end up looking too far down the road, you get over your skis, and that's when you get into trouble.
That's a good analogy. It's a very different look to the race this time out, Charlie. How are you feeling about the big changes in class of boat? You've done 2 editions in the Volvo class monohulls. How are you feeling about this change to the IMOCA class?
I think it's a good marriage, the IMOCA class and the ocean race. If you could start from scratch, I don't know that you'd end up at the IMOCA, but the class, that's a product of the class and how healthy it is. It's a democracy in some ways, and they're trying to satisfy the cutting edge of technology and the depth of the fleet, and the result of that is, well, at times a very uncomfortable boat, but 40 boats looking to do the Vendee Globe, so they're doing something right, and the differences between sailing crewed and sailing single-handed are becoming more minimal as the race sees what the IMOCA is all about, and they start to get on the same page. So, hopefully the future is quite bright.
It's been a big project, isn't it? You committed to this ocean race almost straight off the bat of the last one. It perhaps just give us a little glimpse into, how big a learning it's been so far.
Yeah, we did our last 2 races in the Volvo 65, and 10 sailors and 3 shore crew in a boatyard, you know, and now the relationship is totally inverted. There's fewer people on the boat. Boats are a lot more technical in nature. We certainly couldn't have done what we did without the 65 as a platform, earlier in our careers. That said, it did seem like a natural time for us to take that next step into the development class, and it's something we've enjoyed. But every single decision matters, you know. The boats are extremely technical, and then you add to that we're making a boat to sail fully crewed, and it's something that's never been done before. A lot of changes along the way. The Ocean Race chose to partner with the IMOCA class, but didn't really go all in on that decision until late in the game, somewhat out of necessity. So the goalposts shifted a number of times during the build and design of our boat. We designed a boat to go to China. Turns out we're not doing that, but a number of people on board, autopilot. But I think over time they've gotten to a good place because we see a healthy fleet of entries, and there's even more teams here this week looking toward the future. So it's good.
Good. I'm going to suggest that 11th Hour Racing are probably the most well prepared of all the entries. You've been very focused on the Ocean Race from the get-go, and the other teams have also been involved in solo offshore racing. Is that an advantage, do you think? I mean, it's been a while since you've raced, but you're very well prepared. What's the thinking behind your build-up?
I think unlike a lot of the other teams, the Ocean Race was always our stated goal. We did do our best to jump in to the IMOCA culture and scene by positioning ourselves in Brittany. I've done 2 TJVs now. We're doing the pole training sessions. So everything except single-handed stuff, we've tried to do, and they've been supportive and they've been welcoming. It's been a very unique experience, but 3 years doesn't make up for 2 decades. The French culture is so strong. They've been doing it for 20 years in the IMOCA. So in some ways, we're just catching up. We feel prepared. Don't get me wrong, for the race, definitely. Particularly in development classes, though, I think, as everybody knows, it's, would you rather be the team that's most prepared at the beginning or sailing the best at the end, So, that continues to be our focus, is, learning along the way and making sure that we're improving, faster than anybody else along the way.
Well, Charlie, bring it back in one piece. You can always do the Vendee.
Yeah. The reliability thing is not being talked about enough. It's crazy,
Let's talk more about boat design. There's a lot of nuances to this, obviously, but the IMOCA designed to do the Ocean Race and the Vendee may have a downwind bias to them. And IMOCA designed to race the Ocean Race course of old may have design parameters that may expect some lighter wind sailing, say, in Asia, for example. Is that an advantage for the other teams, do you think?
It's really tough to say. As I alluded to before, we designed our boat with China and New Zealand in mind. So, we feel strong reaching, definitely. These boats are designed for the Vendee Globe. We're spending a lot of time in the South. So in theory, that should be an advantage. But, the way the IMOCA class works, it's all centered around the Vendee Globe. And these boats were built after the Vendee Globe was completed, the first time that boats with powerful foils went into the South. And you see in Boris's boat and Kevin's boat and Paul's boat a lot of spatula in the bow, because VMG running in a sea state in an IMOCA 60 is the hardest thing you can possibly do. The boats become almost pedestrian or terrestrial. You're averaging 22 knots, which aren't massive speeds, in a 4-hour sked. But when you're reaching, you're capable of doing well over 30. So how exactly to get these boats to go downwind in the sea state is the multi-million-dollar question. And you look at Boris's boat, it has the spatula and the volume. There's a lot of freeboard up there. You look at Kevin's boat and Paul's boat, there's plenty of spatula but not a lot of volume, not a lot of freeboard, because it was a insert into the hull. It was a plant, so a bit of an afterthought, whether there's going to be enough up there to make it work.
Just explain the spatula. What?
Yeah, so there's a curvature in the bow, and you sacrifice water line essentially to have the boat more buoyant, so it's not plowing into the next wave. But if even with that spatula, the boat continues to plow in because it doesn't have enough volume, is that spatula actually doing you any good? We have a little bit more volume than the other Verdier boats up there, but much less spatula, and who the heck knows what's going to happen.
It's going to be a handful.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
What about crew, Charlie? How different is that going to be from previous editions? I mean, pretty much half the crew numbers you've had before. How much of a challenge is that?
It's funny, it's certainly less crew than we've sailed with in the past, but for the last 3 years, I've been doing a lot of double-handed sailing. So in other ways, it's twice the fun. But it's a different type of person, I think, that you're looking for. I mean, the days of specialists and driver trimmers and bow people, and it's over. And the IMOCA, you got to be able to do it all. I mean, you got to be good sailor, good seat of the pants sailor. I mean, the autopilot gets a rap, certainly, but it almost requires a more natural sailor because you're trying to do it with less feedback, if that makes sense. So it's more seat of the pants, it's more feeling than it is, apparent wind and looking at the numbers and all that kind of stuff. It's really unique to be sailing inside and down below.
I'm surprised you say then that it's more feel when you're so limited. You're not feeling the breeze, and its visibility is difficult. Mm-hmm. And you're using the autopilot like nearly all the time. Why? What kind of senses? What kind of feeling are you getting? It's
pitch and yaw, like are we too heeled? Does the boat feel stuck? Are we plowing into the next wave? Do we need to ease the headsail, 500 or whatever it is, But you have to feel these things because they're not readily available to you. You can't see them, as naturally as you would in an on-deck type scenario. You don't feel the apparent wind in your face. It's harder to see the sea state, So you have to derive the answers from other sensations. It's really unique. It's crazy. So I feel like people see the IMOCA as a little bit more of a computer-oriented adventurer's game, and it's like these guys are all really good, natural, talented sailors, and that can't be underestimated. So that's something that we look for in the crew, definitely. But then also the ability to do everything, and then all the other personal human attributes that you look for in any team, and that doesn't change. It's interesting you say that the sort of sailor is now different. I mean, when I initially looked at the race, I was like, oh, there's a lot less women involved than we've had in previous editions, and young sailors. But actually, when you look at it more closely, that the women who are involved have absolutely key roles. You have to be a good, solid offshore sailor with no holes in your repertoire, or you're not gonna last the distance. No, for sure. There's no room for passengers. that's for sure. And as it relates to the women on our team specifically, we just feel so lucky to have the likes of Francesca and Justine. Both two absolute powerhouses. And they do the same role on board. We talk about being well-rounded, but at the end of the day, we do have default positions and responsibilities and whatnot, and they swap in and out, and it's been great. Justine's got her own solo career going. Frankie's growing a small family at home, so it's a wonderful balance, and they complement each other well, and we just feel so lucky to have them. Charlie, 2 American skippers have sailed to the win in the Ocean Race. Both quite a while ago in the Whitbread days, Paul Caird and John Kostecki. 2 pretty immense names in the world of professional sailing. What would it mean to you
to join them as the third American ocean race winner?
It'd be a dream come true to join that kind of company. But I think regardless of who your name's on the trophy with, it's more about our dreams and our goals as a team. I think, we're trying certainly to create opportunity for American sailing down the road. It's a big mission of our team. But what's unique about us relative, I think, to those guys is that we have an American sponsor as well, which is quite cool. Having 11th Hour based in Newport, Rhode Island, where we're from, having a home base that happens to be a stopover on the course. I mean, it's fairy tale stuff, We just got to close it out and do our part.
Well, no one's going to start this race if they don't think they can win it. But looking at the sailors in the fleet, it's going to be tough to get any sort of advantage. How confident are you that your team, your boat, can take the win?
We feel prepared. We feel confident. We feel like in the long haul, on average, the work that we've put in will pay off. I think we just have to stay within ourselves, certainly not try to do too much, believe in the systems and the people that we've put in place. And I think, the old adage of to finish first, you must first finish is never been more relevant in this race with these platforms. So, we feel ready. I mean, we know it's going to be tight. Everyone's going to have their day because of the differences in the boats. We know that we have a lot of competitive sailors in this fleet. Nothing's going to come easy, but it's just about not getting too high and not getting too low. And hopefully the result of that is, lifting that coveted trophy in July.
Well, Charlie, we're going to all enjoy watching the story unfold. All the very best, and thank you so much for your time. And come back on the podcast again soon and tell us all about it.
Yeah, I owe you a cup of coffee. Thanks for having me.
You do, yeah. As I voice this edition of the podcast, Charlie and 11th Hour Racing are flying, quite literally, south on leg one of the race, heading towards Cape Verde. As I look on the tracker, they're currently registering 27 knots of boat speed with a 24-hour average of just over 20. That's almost 500 miles in the past 24 hours. Ahead of them by a whisker is our next guest, winner of the 2018 edition of the Volvo Ocean Race under skipper Charles Cordrelli, sailing in his third edition of the race, his first as skipper, the very talented Kevin Escoffier. Kevin was on Banque Populaire when it set the Jules Verne Trophy in 2012 and hit the headlines for the wrong reasons in the last Vendee Globe, when his IMOCA PRB literally snapped in half, hundreds of miles from land. He'll talk a bit about that shortly. He's a passionate man and is skippering Wholesome PRB in this edition of the race. Kevin Escoffier, skipper of Wholesome PRB. I mean, many thanks for joining us on the podcast. It's so great to have you with us.
Happy to be here as well.
Start time is very close now, isn't it? I mean, how are you feeling? How's the team coming together?
Well, it's a huge amount of work to be only at the start of this kind of race, and I can tell you that today, we've done the christening of the boat yesterday, and I'm so proud of the team we've been creating, and I'm very proud of the work they've done to be able to achieve the level of performance of the boat, of the preparation we have here in Alicante. So yes, even if the race is ahead of us, it's still, we already have to be happy of what we've done, of the work we achieved.
It certainly feels like there's a race to get to the race start, but this is a bit of a different thing, isn't it? An IMOCA fully crewed. How are you feeling, Kevin, leading that team?
Looking forward to the first leg, to discover, because we haven't been sailing together. I've done the Route du Rhum single-handed. I hadn't done single-handed since 2020, and what happened on the Vendee Globe. I'm pretty sure you heard about that. So the first race we've done with the full crew starting in Alicante, we've done it on the import race. And I'm very happy of the communication inside the team. I'm very happy of the level of expertise each crew has on board, and I'm looking forward to discover this crew, because it's a race for sure, but it's also a human adventure. I think people fan of sailing does not follow these races only for to know which boat is going quite not faster than the other one, but to discover how each crew is dealing with these boats, how each crew will be able to stay at the highest level of sailing for the 6 months that are in front of us.
You have to very briefly remind our listeners what did happen in that Vendee Globe.
Yes, because in 2020 it was my second race single-handed, and it was the Vendee Globe, quite a huge one. It's 2.5 months alone on an IMOCA boat, on a foiler, and I was third in the very close to the Indian Ocean, in southwest of Cape Town, let's say 1,200 miles southwest of Cape Town, and in a wave, I nosedive in a wave, and I broke the boat in two. The broke just in two forward of the foils. We think that is due to an inversion of the foil. So the foil were pulling the boat down in the water instead of pushing it out of the water in a big wave, and I had to finish in a life raft for 11 hours before Jean Le Cam picked me up and brought me on a French Navy boat to go back to Réunion Island and finally to go back home.
You know more than any other skipper here what can happen if you're sailing at those speeds and it all goes wrong. I mean, you must take a bit of that with you into this ocean race.
Yes, always. But if you're always thinking of that, you're not able to do what we do. You must, if you're always thinking that you can break something, if you're always thinking that you can sink a boat, you quit sailing, I think. And what is strange is that, as you say, it could be terrifying. I could be traumatized by that, but I think it's quite the opposite. It gave me a lot of confidence, because when I broke my boat, I was third on a great race against great sailors. I've shown that I was also able to survive that kind of issue, which is not that easy. At one point when you've got a decision to take, if you take the wrong one, you're not here to be able to talk about it. So I think in a way I've been not that bad. So no, today I think I've got more confidence out of this story than any terrifying dreams when I go on the water.
Let's talk a bit about your boat. It is new generation IMOCA, and any new IMOCA needs foils, obviously, to be competitive. It was built at Carrington's in the UK. Jason, of course, has been on our podcast. But it started live, didn't it, being built specifically for this race, for the ocean race, so as a crewed boat. But you took over during the build. Did you then have to make a lot of changes to configure it for solo sailing?
Yes, I think this hull built at Carrington in Southampton was a great opportunity for whole team PRB to be able, first, to save time, second, to save money, time to be back on the water as short as possible. And I think the reason why I'm at the start of the ocean race is because I've decided to go for this hull, and the money saved by not having to pay all the design helped me to change a bit the boat. We changed the bow of the boat. I've been able to do a new design foil. I've been able to change the cockpit to be able to do single-handed and full crew, because at the start, the two pedestals configuration was for single-handed in order to be able to trim the sails and to see the sails at the same time, to be able to hoist a sail windward, not being behind the wing mast. But it appeared that it was also very good for full crew configuration, and I'm very happy with that.
What about now? I mean, 2 months ago, you crossed the finish line alone. You're about to head off with crew on the same boat. Just talk us through that. How many crew and how different will racing be to sailing solo? How will that work, and what will the kind of mindset be?
You need the same mindset to put a lot of energy in what you do, to work hard to anticipate issue, because we all know that we'll have issue. It's not a matter of will we have issue or not. We'll have issue. It's a matter of how we will deal with that kind of issue. And other thing, when I started to build the crew that is now starting the Ocean Race, I had to decide either if I was going for a 4-people crew or a 5-1. I've decided to go for 4 people with at least 1 woman, in order to be able to save weight on the boat, because I think it's very important on that kind of boat not to be too heavy. And then I've been looking for a crew not only for the performance of the people, but to be able to build a crew that is able to live together for 6 months, to be able on the human side, because we've seen plenty of ocean race crew that have been, after a few legs, the performance was going down, not because they were not good sailors, they were all good sailors, but because these sailors together were not able to compete together. And I think it's very important not only to have skilled people, but that these skills are able to fit together in order to do a greater crew.
All right, let's talk history, Kevin. You've done the Volvo Ocean Race, as it was, twice before with Charles Credrelli on board Dongfeng. As we've discussed, you're a very accomplished solo sailor also. I mean, taking on the role of skipper in the race is a big step up, isn't it? A lot of responsibility, lots of calls to make. How are you feeling about that element of the challenge, about leading the team and being responsible for them?
It's what I like in sailing as well. When you do, there is plenty of sport at 30 years old. You have to think what you'll do after retiring of your sport. What is great about sailing is that you may have plenty of lives in your sailing career. And now I've been a crew on board multi-hulls. I've been doing double-ended. I've been doing single-ended. Now I'm back full crew as a skipper. And what I like is that I learn plenty of things. So it's intellectually, it's a great achievement. It's a great intensity, I think, and I'm learning so much to build the team, to be part of building the crew, to put so much energy to pull people to do better. I definitely love that. And I think when I was a crew, I was putting everything for the team, and now as a skipper, I do the same. So I think I do exactly the same. I put the same energy as a crew or as a skipper, but this time I will have a bit more decisions to take. But I think that I moved from crew to single-handed and back to crew, and I think having been used for single-handed, it helps to be able to take these decisions. And now, what is important when you come from single-handed is not to take all decisions alone, but to listen for the other. And I think that having in my career both crew and single-handed makes me a better skipper. I hope at least.
Obviously, the last edition was very different. Raced in the Volvo 65s. The race was always called the Everest of the sea, wasn't it? I mean, for you, just from the race perspective, how different does this edition feel? I mean, is it the same sort of vibe, or does it feel, way different from other editions?
Compared to the two last editions, it's very different. But if you go back a bit earlier, we had previously races with prototypes boat, and we've seen that reliability is one of the main key to say who will win the race. We've seen that arriving in Itajaí, you had the top team, and we were saying, okay, it's down, the race is finished, and each time you got something. So we'll have plenty of things on this race, but for sure, reliability will be a key thing in order to win this ocean race to 2023.
You're worried about keeping it all together?
Yes, yes, I agree. I'm worried about that. Even if we've been working hard on putting reliability on the top of the list, we've done some modification on the boat here in Alicante to put more structure at the bow of the boat to avoid any structural issue. But there is always, you may hit something in the water, you may break a cable, you may break a sail. So it can happen. So I'm worried about that before the start, because I'm still able to anticipate something, to put a few things in the spare list. But as soon as we will be at the start of the race, it will be finished. We've done all we could do to prepare it well, to do it well, to anticipate problems. And as soon as we'll be on the water at the start, it will be pushing, and to find the limit between pushing hard and not to break the boat, because on that kind of boat, especially with the foils, especially close to winds against the sea state, we can be very, very fast, and sometimes faster than what the boat and the crew can handle. And we'll have to be very careful with that, I think.
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? With a crew, there could be no let up for speed. You could push and push and push way more than you can when you're sailing short-handed. How much are you looking forward to getting out there with a talented team and kind of letting the boat fly 24/7?
And today also, automatic pilots, they are not afraid of anything. When you've got a helmsman, you can say, okay, as soon as... what is interesting is now, even on automatic pilot, we can put some limits on the speed, which means that as soon as you go to a top speed, the boat is bearing away and decreasing the speed, a bit like a sailor would do, to be sure not to break anything. So, but for sure we will push more, even for the standing rigging, for the winches, for the hardware on board. We will trim much more often. We will be faster. What will happen? We don't know yet, but it's also part of it that is very interesting, to push our boats, to discover what our boats are able to do, able to achieve. And we will discover that for sure on this race.
It's a really important point you make for our listeners to try and get their heads around. Normally, if you're steering the boat, you feel
exactly
the danger, you feel the power, the boat heels over if it's not foiling. Whereas in these boats, the boat is level most of the time, and the speed is just increasing, and you're enclosed, so you don't necessarily feel.
You've got numbers. Yeah, you have to discover new way of feeling it. The vibrations, the sounds of the foils, the sounds of the aerodynamic of the sail, the mast, the feeling when you're sitting. Every people that have been sailing a dinghy feels the boat, even if he or she close the eyes, they will feel the boat in their bottom, in their legs, in their feet, and that's what we are trying to do. We've got the numbers, and with the numbers, you have to put a bit of feeling in order to get all information from the boat. Numbers are not yet. Maybe we'll be able to have that, but the numbers are not able, the sensors are not able to give you all information. So you need to get all the information with the sensor you've got on your body.
Interesting. Just lastly, Kevin, in 6 months' time, when it's all wrapped up and we're in Genoa, what would a good ocean race be for you and your team? And what do you hope to achieve?
I like to, there are two things. For me, I'm looking, I'm someone that is not easily happy of something because I always want better. And I think that what I would like to dream of is for sure to compete, for sure to be at the best place, but in a certain way. We are talking about people. And I think that I wouldn't like, if I win the ocean race with people that we would not even go to have a beer after the race together, I wouldn't be happy with that. I like to win this race, and the team, because we are not finishing the ocean race. After that, the team will live together even after that. We've got other races after that. And I want the team to stay together. I want a team that stay here for a long time, and I want the crew to have good human story, as I have, as I make friends on previous ocean races. You spend a huge adventure with these people, and so I want to win in Genoa with people I will be happy to spend more time with after the finish line.
Kevin Escoffier, many, many thanks for your time, and
thanks
the
a lot.
Best of luck.
Thanks a lot. See you soon.
One of the best things about a big race start like the Ocean Race is that everyone's here. It's a great place to go to catch up with old friends. So start day saw me strolling around the event village, microphone in hand, and it didn't take me long to find some familiar faces. You bump into lots of legends here at the Sailors Bar in the Ocean Race, and I'm with Ian Walker. Won it 2 times ago. What's it like being back, Ian? What does it feel like being at a race start in Alicante, but you're not taking off?
Well, it's a bit emotional. I kind of am a little bit out of the Ocean Race recently, since 2015, the last time I did it. But I did 3 races, and I was just recounting this morning how nerve-wracking it was, particularly my first race. Really emotional. I remember they blessed the boats, and then you're kind of setting off, and you're part of your family there, and part of you's thinking kind of, I hope I make it back. And the other half's really nervous about the race and the performance. And so, really, it's great to be here, see lots of old friends and faces. And I think it's going to be an exciting race, actually. They've pulled it off.
It's got a different vibe. It's going to be a different kind of race. When you look at the boats, are you kind of tempted? Do you wish you were heading off tomorrow, Ian?
Well, I can tell you right now, nothing would make me want to sail one of those open 60s with 4 other people, down below, particularly in the hot sections of the race. I could just about deal with being inside, I think, in the Southern Ocean bit. But, when you're going across the equator in the heat, and, it's quite nice to go on deck and lie on deck. So it's, I think that's going to be really tough, just existing. Never mind the racing and everything else, just existing on those boats is going to be really tough.
New job now, you're with North Sails, you got all the kit on. In your position, in your job, what's your thoughts on this edition? This feels very different, almost a transition in the history of the Ocean Race. What do you make of it? What do you think it'll be like?
Well, as you say, new job, North Sails, and North's a long history in the race. I probably should know, but I suspect a North Sails powered boat has won it, all the way back to when I was a young kid. And certainly, I think all of the boats here have got North Sails as well. So, so it's an important race for us, like the America's Cup is as a company. It's important that the race is healthy. And as you say, it is a period of transition. But I think that's been going on for a while. Even 3 editions ago, we've only really had 7 or 8 boats in the race for a while. And I think one of the things that the race has lacked is the ability to come in and just sort of test the waters with an older boat or with a private owner. With the One Design, you couldn't really do that. and that's what the Vendee has. You can get an old boat, enter with different goals to the people trying to win, and then you can work your way up. A bit like Pip Hare, great race, her first race. Now she's got a sponsor, she's got a better boat, more expectation, and who knows, maybe she'll get and build a new boat and go on to win the race if she doesn't this time in the future. So that sort of stepping stone is really important. I think that's what the race has lacked. So, you know, there's no easy answers as to what should do, but you know, the boats look cool, and I'm particularly excited to see the different modes they can sail and then the tactical options that opens up.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. Now, Ian, I know you're a man who needs a job. I hope they've given you a job at this race start.
I've been busy. I kept just trying to bring my mum down for a weekend in the sun, and I've already been busier than I am back at home. But it's great to, you know, obviously Volvo's still sponsoring the race, so I'm going to spend time with them and some of their key customers, and we've got guests from different stopovers coming to Alicante to get ideas for their stopover. Like I say, I've got my mum here, I've got my North hat on, so yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend.
It's great to see you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Shirley.
I'm with Sam Davies, another regular on the podcast. Not actually going to start from Alicante, but I have heard a little whisper that you're going to do the marathon leg 3. Tell us about that and what you're doing here.
Well, it's really nice to be here, Shirley. Doing the start on Sunday, and enjoy having no responsibility and being able to say hi to everybody and all my friends like you. And after a very, very busy few years with Initiative Care. Our boat's in refit right now, and so it's perfect timing to come here. I'm doing the live TV commentary with Eurosport for the imports and the leg starts. And yes, I have managed to get myself a little invitation to go and do the leg of this race. And for me, it's just the leg 3 is just going to be a marathon, incredible, and it's history being made, and so really important for me to be part of it.
Tell us a bit more about that. I mean, leg 3, it's infamous already. The longest leg in this race's history, and you're going to be sailing. Well, you tell us.
It's a really long leg from Cape Town to Itajaí, so it's basically sailing all the way around the Antarctic. We're sailing all the way around the world on leg 3, basically. And not only that, but it's this race is historic this edition as well, because it's the first time the IMOCAs are here sailing fully crewed. And I remember in 2014 edition with D. Kafari, we're in the Southern Ocean, and just like sending it on Team STA at one point in the Southern Ocean, and it was really cool and fun. And I just remember looking at D, and we both said at the same time, I think, if only we were in our IMOCAs, this would just be even better. And so finally the dream has come true, and then the IMOCAs are going to sail fully crewed around the world, and I'm really looking forward to following that and be a little tiny part of it occasionally.
Oh, quite a big part of it. You're going to be sailing, of course, with Paul Mielert on biotherm, and I spoke to him early today, and he said, my plan with the crew is to fill the boat with single-handed sailors, and we'll all work it out.
Well, I know Paul really well because he came and sailed with me on Initiative Care in 2019, and then he carried on through 2020 to help me prepare the Vendee Globe. So we've sailed and worked together, and we know each other pretty well, and so it was really cool when he phoned me up to see if I had any free time to come and sail with him. And I know he's got with Biotherm, it's a great project, but it was put together quite last minute, not just through that was how he got his funding, and I'm sure he would have liked to have been on the water a bit earlier, so he needed to find people that he could trust without any time to train or team build. It's a bit of I guess it's high tariff going into it like that, so it's important for him to trust the people and know that the people he puts together can kind of do everything on the boat and work it out whilst we're going along.
Probably quite nice to sail someone else's boat as well. I mean, you'll get a lot from it. Normally you're hanging out in Brittany, in the heart of the IMOCA world. What's the chat up there about this race? Are they all kind of watching to see what happens?
I think so, and it's funny because I've been here since last weekend, but just over the last day and a half, I've seen more and more familiar faces from France, from Brittany, and from other teams who aren't in this edition of the race. But I know, and it's the same with us in Initiative Cur, it was too early for us to be able to do this race, and for me it just wasn't possible to run straight from the campaign that I've just done through a complete ocean race and everything that comes on after that. So but it's something I know my sponsors are looking at, and I think we're definitely not the only team. A lot of people are it's the same thing. It was a little bit early, a bit last minute to be able to find the funding and build a campaign, because it's new for the French teams. None of them have the experience of what this race really is and what you have to put in place to be able to do it. So these 5 IMOCAs that are here, and I guess especially the 2 fully French boats, Holcim PRB and Biotherm, are kind of the guinea pigs for the French world, and everyone's watching them and really looking forward to see how the race comes out and their feedback from it, of like how they did it is going to work for the future, and how much it's going to cost, and is it worth it, and does it work for the sponsors. So I think there's a few people in Brittany regretting not being here now, and then a few people saying, no, the timing wasn't right, but it's definitely something we've got to look at for the future.
Yeah, it certainly feels like an exciting time for the ocean race. There's a lot riding on this edition. It feels like if it goes well, the French could be coming in their numbers. Just lastly, the last time you would have been here for a start, you were skipper of SCA, the all-women's team. And I just wondered what kind of memories are coming back. What's your feeling to be back here for a race start of the ocean race?
I've got so many great memories from being here with Team STA, and obviously it was also really, really hard because it's long. We didn't have so much experience, and I'd never been skipper before, and I learnt so much in those 9 months of the ocean race. I've got some great memories of Alicante and our team, and it's funny because since I've been here, most of the Team SCA crew are all here. I think Sophie's not here because she's just had a baby. But I keep bumping into all our team members. We've set up a little WhatsApp group and we've had dinner together, and it's really great to catch up with everyone, and it's great to see that everyone's got other amazing projects on, and quite a few of the girls from Team SCA are also involved in this edition of the race and out there sailing. So great memories, and a great group and a great team that's still in touch now.
Friends for life. Sam, it's great to see you. Have the best weekend, and we look forward to hearing all about the big leg 3.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But right now I'm actually just really, really enjoying chilling out and watching. It's so nice for a change to be able to watch the racing and follow it from land, and do a bit of weather routing and see how they're going to deal with this leg.
Sam Davies and Ian Walker there. A big thanks to them for letting me gate crash their event day for a couple of minutes. It's always good to have them on the podcast. My next chat is with one of my favourite people ever. Annie Lush would be first on my crew list, whatever I was sailing. She's talented, impossibly smart, and a great motivator. She sailed the ocean race twice before on Team SCA with Sam, and last time around on Brunel. And this time is sailing on the European IMOCA team of Geo Environment. I'm delighted to have her on the podcast. She sailed with me back in the Yingling days and is an absolute star. Annie Lush making a long-awaited debut on the podcast. A 2-time ocean race sailor, Olympian, and one of my very favourite people. For our podcast listeners that don't know, Annie and I have spent a lot of time sailing together, a while ago now, and she won't like me saying so, but she's a massive talent on any team, an asset on any boat she sails on. So Annie, a massive welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm pretty sure after each one of your previous ocean races, you've sat down with me and sworn never to go again. I know it's been a while, but what are you doing?
Oh no, it's a good question. you're right. I think the last race, I exited badly. Broke myself quite badly. So I suppose that left a bit of a hole because I hadn't quite finished it. But then I had a child and I thought really everything had changed and I was okay to leave it behind. But Robert Staniek approached me pretty quickly after she was born to say that he had a boat and could I just come and do the christening for him. So I thought that was okay. And then he said, well, can you just come and do the fast net? Oh, okay, it's just a couple of days offshore. And so it sort of went like that. So yeah, here we are now after doing the European Ocean Race and now we're going around the world again.
You raced on SCA, of course, 2 editions ago, and then Brunel in the last edition, both 65s. I mean, this time you're on Geo Environment. I hope I pronounced that right. Just, how different is that proposition? Just perhaps compare for us.
Yeah, I think sailing the IMOCA is very different to the 65 to the extent that sometimes it doesn't even feel like sailing anymore, the familiarity of it. And actually I think that's one of the reasons I am doing this again. I'm not sure I could do it again on a 65. I mean, I love the race. The 65 is amazing because you can push it and it's a good ocean boat. But on the IMOCA, I feel like I'm just learning how to sail all over again. And yeah, that's actually pretty exciting, but hard.
What's it like, Annie? Perhaps, compare racing around the planet on the 65s and what it's like, on the ocean and in IMOCA.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing you see on the IMOCA, other than the foils, is the cabin. So being inside is a big plus, much drier. So that's a good thing. But also very strange. I mean, sometimes you can come on deck and you don't really know, which tack you're on or what sails are up because you can't see anything. We've got some little windows, but other than that, it's very hard to see anything. But yeah, I think the main difference for me is, other than the foiling, which actually, I mean, is very different in terms of the motion and how you sail the boat, but foils is just like another thing to trim, so it's not so different. But I think being on autopilot is pretty strange. So we're very rarely driving the boat, not because we're lazy, but because I think when you're foiling, it's pretty hard to drive it anyway. And when you're not, there's just nowhere really to drive from. You can't really see anything. So the boat's 95% of the time on autopilot. And yeah, this is like a complete relearning for me because, I'm used to either a driver or driving myself. And then, if it's going badly, try and give them a bit of chocolate or ask them what's going wrong or if the trim feels wrong, and then you've just got this machine and it doesn't tell you anything, doesn't respond well to chocolate. So you have to work out what's going on. And yeah, it's been really interesting to learn all that, but sometimes I just wish could just take the tiller and get on with it.
Is it always faster than the human? They're so advanced now, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the autopilot is very good, but it just depends on how good the inputs are. And, so it's getting data from the top of the mast and the heel angle, true wind angle. But as you know, when you're sailing, that's sort of what's read at the top of the mast isn't always what's at the bottom. So it just really depends on how good those inputs are. And if there's a, twist in the wind, or there's a difference between on the water and the top of the mast, or something's off in your instruments, then it's not really able to deal with that. And the other thing is, in waves, it obviously can't see what's coming. So the input it has for the waves is the heel angle or the inputs it has, but it can't see in the future. So it's very good when it's steady state. It's probably steadier than a human, and especially if you're reaching in a straight line. But I think when you have really varying conditions or difficult wave state, it's got a bit of work to do.
Let's talk about comfort. Be honest here, Annie. I mean, there is not a lot of space in there. It's a boat designed for one. What is it like living on board?
Yeah, I think our boat was definitely designed for someone shorter than me, as are most of the IMOCAs. So I can never stand up anywhere. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have more of a hunchback by the end of this race. So that's a tricky thing. But no, in seriousness, when you're in the pit or you're trimming, you can't actually stand up over the winch. You're sort of slightly humped. And yeah, the living quarters are small for sure. But on the other hand, there's less people. So, I mean, I did sail a Volvo 65 with 12 girls on board, and the watch change was a bun fight. So at least now when I change watch, it's just me, so I can use all the space that there is.
I mean, the last time around, as you say, there was more than twice the number of crew that you now have on board. You sail with, well, 4 sailors and a media person. I mean, how is that going to affect how you race these boats? Just give us a little glimpse of how that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, the most noticeable thing, and I think anyone watching sees this straight away on the import race, is obviously for manoeuvres, you're very undercrewed. And the boat is also just not even set up to do them properly or fast. You shouldn't really change sail very much. So yeah, I think in terms of manoeuvres and changing, it's a lot of energy. It takes a long time and it costs a lot. So that feels undercrewed. The rest of the time, we're always sailing with 2 on deck. And basically one person's sort of driving, although the autopilot's driving, you've got to sort of drive the autopilot and probably on the main sheet. And then the other one supporting them, checking the front sail trim, checking the radar a lot, because we can't see anything. So sometimes you're averaging 27, 28 knots. You know, if there's a ship averaging 18 knots the other way, that's a pretty quick closing speed. So yeah, the other person's sort of managing everything else. And we have a lot of alarms on board. A lot of indicators, a lot more than I'm used to, of knowing when you're near the edge of some of the equipment, but you really have to monitor that.
It seems there's a lot more things in your job description than perhaps you had in the past.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way to sail, because before perhaps I was just the trimmer and then I was really just focused on that sail and trimming that sail well. And yeah, now I think you've got to be more all around, and you can't just focus on one element. I think particularly because of the fragility of the boats. I mean, they are fast, but the Volvo 65 is like you're just pushing the accelerator all the time with that boat, and you know when it's the edge is when the person driving kind of wipes out. On the IMOCA, you know, the autopilot will drive it into 1,000 pieces. It doesn't know where the edge is. And yeah, then you've got to really decide how to back it off. So it feels like it's the other way around most of the time. You want to go as fast as possible, but you're trying to work out what's stable, what's reliable, what you're really able to do. And then a lot of the time you're actually, you know, making decisions to make sure that the boat stays in one piece. So it's a sort of the completely opposite way around. And quite a lot of it involves looking at graphs rather than feeling the pressure in a sheet.
I've just come from the press conference, and there was quite a lot of chat about, you know, when to throttle back. It's exactly what you're saying. Potentially, it's going to be key more than in any other edition.
Yeah, I mean, then it sounds like we're sort of throttling back and cruising. I mean, when you say you're throttling back, it just means you're trying to keep the average speed under 30 knots, not letting it pile into 39 knots. So it doesn't really feel like throttling back on board, but it is that, because they can go incredibly fast. And the problem is obviously if you're foiling at 38 knots and you crash and you deaccelerate to 8 knots, I mean, that's so much pressure in the foils and mostly on the mast that you can't keep doing that. So it's just trying to find an average that you can maintain where you're not just sending incredible shock loads through the boat, because you can't do that too many times.
Let's talk a little bit about your boat, Annie. I mean, how prepared are you? What are your chances, and what's the sort of dynamic within the team? What's going to be the DNA of this team?
In terms of hardware, our boat is the oldest boat in the race by a lot. In fact, the others are all brand new, so they're after the last Vendee, so the newest generation, and we're actually 2 generations old. So our boat was originally designed without foils, and they were retrofitted by Alex Thompson, who owned the boat at the time. And then the foils have been upgraded since then, but it does mean that the boat's probably a bit heavier, and it wasn't specifically designed for this race. On the other hand, hopefully, this means it's perhaps reliable. It's been in the Southern Ocean before, and it's made it through it, which gives me quite a bit of confidence. And as you know, the ocean race is kind of 2 things. I mean, it's a performance race for sure, 100%. But you've also got to get around it to win it. So yeah, we will see what our hardware does for us. But I hope that the reliability means that we can, push through each leg and keep pushing. And in terms of the team, we're a real mix. We're actually called Geoenvironment Team Europe because I think we represent Europe quite well. So we're sort of half French, half German. I'm British and Tamara's Spanish. So we try to mix up the languages as much as possible. I think you'd be amused if you looked at the spares kit. It's kind of labelled in multiple languages now. And we have a good mix, I think, as well of backgrounds. And that's something that's on purpose. When we raced in the Ocean Race Europe last year, we had this sort of mix of Olympic sailors and offshore sailors. And this is really the idea, to see how you can combine that to get the seamanship, but also the performance. So we've kept the same core team that we had in the Ocean Race Europe. And now we've added another offshore sailor and some other inshore sailors. And yeah, I mean, it worked very well for us in the Ocean Race Europe. This is a bit of a different race, there's more offshore obviously. But I think that's the whole thing. Our success will be if we can combine all those skills and if people can really bring out what they can bring to the team. Like everyone's difference is if we can get them all out and use all those skills, then we'll be strong.
What's the chat, Annie, about the change to the IMOCA for this race? I mean, good thing, bad thing. I mean, everyone has an opinion and you're one of the most analytical people I think I know. So what's the general consensus amongst the sailors?
This is a good question because I don't know if there is a general consensus in some ways. There's definitely two worlds. I mean, there's a very French-dominated IMOCA world, and if you ask the French, they love the IMOCA. If you ask the sort of old-school ocean racers, well, it's always hard to change, isn't it? So probably there's more resistance from that side. I think having a less crew is a valid point. I mean, something about getting 9 people or 12 people to work together is quite a feat. It's still difficult with 4 or 5, but it changes it quite a bit. But on the other hand, I think everyone wants to see the race continue. And I mean, everything changes, it has to. And I think it'd be hard now to sail around the world sort of slowly without foiling, because that's what the rest of the sailing world's doing. So I think you've got to go with it. And and machines are taking over people, and that's also what's happening in the rest of the world. So yeah, personally, I think it's, I love sailing the old boats. I mean, I'd love to sail a 12 meter, I like sailing, we sailed a very slow old boat together as well. And you learn a lot from them, but I'm also enjoying learning something new. I don't think it's one or the other, it's just different.
You're about to go, it's not long now, is it, before you head off? And this time, more than ever actually, it all feels pretty unknown. How are you feeling about it all?
I think unknown is a good description. The first race I did with SCA, we felt like it was quite unknown because none of us had really been in the race before and we didn't know anybody. And I remember arriving in Alicante and I didn't know any of those sailors. They weren't Olympic sailors. I hadn't seen them on multiple events. And it's a bit like that all over again here, because a lot of the IMOCA sailors are from this sort of French single-handed world, which is not one that I've been in before. But there's a lot that's very familiar about being in Alicante, about to start an ocean race. I think in terms of, performance, how these boats will fare in these conditions, I think there's a lot we don't know yet. And I think the best advice I ever had from this race was from one of our coaches, just saying that crazy things will happen that you can never predict and you just got to keep going. And in my first race, a boat ended up running aground, which you don't expect in an ocean race. And, many instances have happened in those 2 races, and I think it still holds true, and that will hold true for this race again. So you just got to keep going. And whoever's strong at the beginning, it's not about that. It's whoever's strong at the end.
Annie, sail safe, and many, many thanks for coming on the podcast.
Lovely to see you, Shirley, as always.
the very wonderful Annie Lush, closing out the first edition of this Ocean Race podcast. As I voice this, the fleet are charging towards the Cape Verde Islands at terrifyingly fast speeds. Check it out on the tracker at theoceanrace.com and take a look at some of the video online. Foiling in a race like this for days on end without respite is up there. It's pretty extreme. To all our guests, their teams and press folk, a big thanks for making this edition of the podcast happen. The build up to a race is always full on for the skippers, and so it's great to have their time. Thank you to all of you. If you've enjoyed the podcast and you'd like to support us, then please do head over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast. We work hard to bring you this quality ad-free listen. It takes a lot of time and work, so it's lovely to have your support. Many thanks for that. And of course, all the way down in Alicante, for a while working on this edition of the Ocean Race, a big thanks to the very talented Tim at Vendee Globe Films for making the time to produce this edition of the podcast. In addition to a pretty full-on schedule. Tim, many thanks. Keep doing what you do. And so that's us. Do tune in to part 2. But until next time, thank you so much for listening. Have fun on the water. And of course, sail safe, everyone.
This is Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
Ho, ho, ho. That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line there.
We're looking at 10.5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
This is Castle 1 standing by. Out.